kittens will be the death of us all.
Daddy's got work to do. Ah!
Well, when you put it like that, it's rather creepy. What daddy do you refer to? You haven't any children. Pull over right over there, monstro. I'm referring to a kitten. Kittens? That's where? You're doing it wrong, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, what I present to you is the Hiram Smith residence in Grass Lake, in Jackson County, in the great state of Michigan, in poor condition. That's what we're told anyway. The original building was one story. They added the front portion about 1860, putting the date of erection around 1842. The original portion of handmade brick is a molded brick cornice. At the same time, the original portion was built. A brick barn was erected with molded brick cornice to match the house. And there's a fieldstone foundation pictured here, which doesn't match the rest of the house. And I don't know, it's sort of a rendezvous we are witnessing here by the side of this most excellent car. Back in the days when surveyors wore coat, tie, and hat. And we're told that the house was built in 1842, as I stated, by Hiram Smith, who sold it to Abner Dwell, who was a native of Gorham, Ontario County, New York, who left the property to his son, whose widow still occupies the farm. There you can see the fieldstone foundation, which matches not the rest of the building. And we're told via telegram, slightly more, stop elaborate, stop brick, stop cornice, stop may, stop have, stop in, stop the original, stop house, stop part, stop of, stop porches, stop and front, stop of house, stop or later, stop heavy, stop porch, stop cornice, stop and trace of, stop heavier, stop column on, stop east side, stop nothing on the interior, stop worthy of note. How dare you insult Miss Smith's furnishings? Nothing of note. Pay him no mind, Miss Smith. I'm sure your furnishings are fine. And that is an elaborate door for a barn. I don't think I've ever seen a door with such grandiose appearance. Makes me wonder if indeed this was built to be a barn, but I recklessly speculate and squint with suspicion at just about everything that moves. So pay me no mind. Oh, that's better. Hey, get the bleep off my bleep. Here would be the Soper residence with Soper columns looking super old world. Poor jokes aside, we're told the initial construction was around 1840 by an unknown architect with an owner of the name Wakaloy Zaremba, who hails from the planet Blingdor. A Mr. Soper, the first owner, had the horse built, but whether or not he acted as builder and directed the work is not known. What is known is the house is in fair condition, but under present ownership is in poor custody. Rather insulting. There are no other existing records, and we're told the main entrance door has sidelights, pilasters with rather crude caps and bases, supporting a molded entablature with bevel-faced dentils. 3 extensions were added on the rear at later dates, once the house began stocking up on snacks and increasing in poundage. This here be the Sidney T. Smith house, says I. Also in Grass Lake, Jackson County, Michigan, with a slightly later/earlier, I meant to say, date of erection given 1835 by Sidney T. Smith, who designed the house from others in the United States which followed Greek lines, presumably taking his plans from the Modern Builder's Guide, published in New York in 1833. Levi Babbitt was the mason contractor on the house, and Mr. Smith was the head carpenter, for which work he received a paltry 75 cents per day, which was better than the other carpenters who weren't the head, who only got 50 cents per day. Enough to get you a cold cruiser after work. That's all I need. Woohoo! County courthouse records and from Charles W. Smith is where information was obtained. All the material in the house was obtained from timber on the farm. The logs were hauled by oxen from the place to Flint, the infamous Flint. They are cut into lumber and returned to the farm by those very same oxen. During the construction, the Sidney T. Smiths lived in a log cabin nearby, which they built when they'd settled there a couple of years earlier, operating boats on the Great Lakes previously for a time, having been established in Detroit. He and Mrs. Smith were both born in New York. His general merchandise store in Grass Lake was one of the first in the section. He later became state senator and was a personal friend of those stalwart pioneer statesmen Zachariah Chandler and Austin Blair. This data is not guaranteed by the Library of Congress, I should add, but with the exception of changes made in the size of the windows in the east wing, the building stands today just as it was when built in 1835, including little cubbyhole for those hiding out from redcoats, or perhaps maybe just as an Airbnb for nearby gophers. Walnut and white pine were used throughout. Many pieces in the furniture in the house, however, are of solid mahogany. Though we don't get to see those, we're going to jump here. They do say there's a set of candelabras done in gold leaf with crystal pendants and 2 large mirrors of exceptional quality, which you don't get to see, you the viewer. And we're on to the next one. Look at this juicy old world banger. What is going on here with these domes? What is that? What is this, some sort of Serbian Orthodox church? Not bloody likely. Skip-a-maroo, it's the Kalamazoo State Hospital in Oakland Drive in Kalamazoo County. That's a fun word to say. Architect Samuel Sloan. Date of construction 1854. We're told it's a mid-19th century mental hospital. A prime example of the Sloan-Kirkbride collaboration, which created a specialized architecture for hospitals for the insane. Made of brick. Sloan is credited with 32 hospitals for the insane. At his death in 1884, however, only 13 are firmly documented. How about that? They are known for their functional requirements and attention to detail. I'd say they're known for their rather suspect purpose, construction, use, and construction. That's what I'd say. As your faithful auditor/editor, what in the devil is going on here? Like, why? This clearly added on porch here, and the clearly submerged foundation, and the strange old world shape belie a different sort of history, don't they? A history marred with strange doorways? Like, why is this one so tall? Unless it's just a window, because this one's short, and this one's even shorter, but this one's just a window too. And what the frick's going on here? Why do you need so many... that's the inside of it? Golly. That'd make anyone go insane. The hell am I even looking at here? We're told... I see. This is the substructure beneath the first floor. Rather interesting, isn't it? Almost as if it's just a cistern of sorts. One can almost imagine water. I don't know, but what a creepy place. And then you've got this gorgeous interior. Wow, look at them ceiling, that stairway. I mean, all this just for the crazies, huh? Likely bloody story. Wow, look at that. Just look at that friggin' cast iron work. What a gorgeous building. My lord. Samuel Sloan, my buttocks. These hospitals are suspiciouser than hell, and that there's my official prognosis. You can take that to the bank, except mine use no damn bank. Tin can and the buried in a hole in the backyard's worked fine for me for years. I ain't seen no purpose in reasoning and changing it. I trust no damn government to tell me what to do with my life. I should add here, this Michigan survey, that there are a vast number of properties, well, more than I've seen in any other state thus far, that have no photographs and just information, which doesn't make for very good viewing. So those we'll be skipping, but they are numerous. Just know that. Just put that in your data pipe and toke up. This is the Aaron B. Dykeman House. Now we're in Grand Rapids. The architect is unknown. The date of construction is 1846. The design of the house is reputed to have come from an Eastern architect from New York. 2 stories and a basement with a full attic and a wonky foundation, I'll add. The foundation is of a river limestone. The walls are of common brick, which is painted. The main interior dividing wall is solid brick, and the existing records are none discovered. The house was built for Aaron B. Dykeman, a man of taste, by Jove, and a jeweler by vocation. Came from New York State in 1837. It is typically a city structure intended to be built solidly into a block and was oddly placed in a small village with ample land all around. What a gorgeous set of vehicles. My lands. Wow, is this why they call cars? Is this where the modern trunk came from? I had never considered it. It was just a trunk strapped to the rear. Wow, that might seem obvious to some, but I might be more dafter than most, so it takes me a second. Look at them furnishings. Look at them little feller. What's going on here? The Holy Santos. Wow, nice candelabras. These furnishings are of note. And, that's your chair, Jerry, you short-legged little man. Over here is for the grown-ups. I'm told the awning on this is completely original. The rest came later. And I completely made that up. And I completely hope that was obvious. But I'm also completely aware that most of my humor is completely misunderstood. And I completely apologize, completely disingenuously. Abraham Pike House. There. Date of erection, 1845. Architect and builder, unknown. But we do know that Abraham Pike, who came to Grand Rapids in 1844 after being since 1838 in the employ of the Port Sheldon Company, which was, if you can recall, a group of Philadelphia capitalists who endeavored to establish a metropolis on the shores of Lake Michigan and had erected a group of buildings there, among them being a hotel called the Ottawa House and a depot building for the proposed railroad. They took the design of the hotel from the United States Bank at Philadelphia. Because, banks make great hotels. At the collapse of the company's project, Mr. Pike bought 4 of the 6 columns from the Ottawa House to Grand Rapids to use as the front portico of his house. They cut them down in height from approximately 7 1/2 diameters to nearly 6 1/3 diameters. They show excellent excellent workmanship, and it is inconceivable that they were built in the wilderness at Port Sheldon. I would agree. No doubt they were part of the main bulk of building material, which is recorded to have been brought to the site on scows in 1836. Therefore, the columns were probably manufactured in Detroit. A lot of speculation here in this historical document. Here, I thought I was the reckless speculator. An old picture of the Pike House in Baxter's History and an old photograph in the possession of Mr. George Fitch of Grand Rapids who didn't want to be pictured, shows two original fireplace chimneys just to the south and in the east. Thank you, Mr. Fitch, for that completely useless information. And all of this comes from Baxter's History of Grand Rapids, which was published in 1891, and also the newspaper files of Grand Rapids Herald, and also from Mr. George Fitch, who also said that Mr. Dale of Grand Rapids, who died, said that the columns were brought in over the snow with ox teams. Mr. Pike was a prosperous businessman and an active public servant, and you should give him his totally deserved propers. This here is the Boardman Noble House, which was built approximately 1847. The architect was possibly Gideon Colton, and the builder was also possibly Gideon Colton. It is much neglected, being used as a rooming house in a factory district. It has 2 full stories with a full attic and a full basement. Hell, does that make it at least 3 stories? I don't know. Foundation is also of river limestone. The exterior walls are of the same material, but they were covered over with stucco in 1920, and under the corner porched roof, the stucco is marked off to resemble stone. There are no other records. They believe that Gideon Colton built the house because it's extremely similar to one that was built up the street, and also because the details of this order are well designed and executed. And the only fireplace in the building was walled up prior to 1900. One wonders how they stayed warm. Look at this. Look at it. Explain this. Why you got 3 different sized windows here, you know? The freck's going on there, though. You freckin' shady ass sister. Oh no, Grandma took a tumble. Well, I hope she's all right. Them bones get brittle, you know, especially after 100 years of hard work. Lovely details, mediocre doors. This here's the Damon Hatch House on good old Cherry Street in Grand Rapids. Architect unknown, builder unknown. According to Baxter's History of Grand Rapids, it was constructed in 1845 with a partial second story and a partial basement. River limestone yet again for the outside walls. Stuccoed over again in 1908. The interior main walls, however, are stone. The house underwent extended alterations in 1908 when it was purchased by the present owner. The greatest external changes were a red Spanish tile roof, which stifles the architectural charm of the building, and a regrettable coat of cement stucco. I like your style, guy. A bedroom and bath were added at the west, and the sunroom and the dining room fireplace was closed up, and the old mantel placed in the living room. And that's all you get to know. What the frick? Look at that thing. What is going on there? Is that just the neighbor's house that overlooks it like that? That's insane. Just next door to a castle. No big deal. Don't mind us. Here's our couple little bald friends here in a fireplace that looks like it has not been besmirched by much wood burning, does it? I love all this old porcelain and stuff going on here. And godly Bob, howdy, who is that? And how come she's so familiar with these flamingos? I don't know. You ever try to earn a flamingo's trust? A tall task. What are you, the bird whisperer lady? I got a bird for you right here. Disrespecting an oil painting. What a heathen. This is the David W. Amberg House. This here is also in Grand Rapids. I'm not sure if that's a misnomer or not. Are the Rapids grand? Tell me in the comments below. Built in 1909 for a prosperous liquor wholesaler. Wholesaler? I hardly know her. This is the only surviving example of the work of Marion L. Mahoney, the architect. She collaborated on this house with Frank Lloyd Wright during the early 20th century. Allegedly. Although we got no dates of construction, and it looks rather modern. This is cool, though. I love that. I guess it's on the registry because it was allegedly constructed by Frank Lloyd Wright. I mean, it looks like it's got some secrets. It looks like a sturdy compound. It really doesn't look like a residence at all, does it? Going out of that. Imagine going up 3 flights of stairs just to get in your front door, but you live in a house, not an apartment. Isn't that odd? I think it's odd. Maybe you don't. Good golly wackles. What is this old world? Look at this castle. The frick's going on here? This is the Grand Rapids City Hall. Totally necessary. And let me guess, the mayor sits up here, perched in his little tower, looking down at the peasants below with a very long, 2-foot cigarette holder, flicking ashes down on our heads. Please, sir, spare us, won't you? Built in 1888, a rather non-suspicious date, by Elijah E. Myers. This is a 6-story corner tower, belfry and clock, and it's a rich, modified Gothic interior detail with ornamental tile floors, and it was demolished in 1966. This is the same guy, E. Myers, who designed the state capitol buildings in Lansing and in Idaho, Colorado, and Texas, other public buildings and such. Why in the would you demolish this building after not even 100 years? That is absolutely ridiculous. This looks like a Habsburg castle from the heart of Austria. Look at the size of the people down here. This is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that this could even be constructed constructed in Michigan and then demolished just 100 years later. Look at that thing. That is absolutely stunning. And how ridiculous. What a crime against all things living to destroy that. Bleep you, whoever made that decision. Oh, it wasn't good enough for you, Mayor, huh? You had to have finer digs than that. Look at how it stands out against this brutalist bullshit over here. Even this sort of retro parking sign, which I kind of like this. This looks like a slice of time. This looks like going into a, modern football arena with digital screens everywhere and then having a giant cuckoo clock on the wall. What in the... I'm just gonna get upset. Why would you demolish this thing? This is absolutely stunning. What a crime. Who is okay with this stuff, man? I bet Mr. Elijah Myers, even if you were a real person, which I doubt, you'd be rolling around in your grave right now. What the hell did they replace it with? That is just maybe the dumbest thing. Grand Rapids, shame on you. Another Frank Lloyd Wright, 1909 construction. The Myers May House. Brick with stone trim, we're told. And that's it. That's all you get. It's definitely got that weird office compound look that Frank Lloyd Wright allegedly was so fond of. Not gonna lie though, those geometric windows are pretty amazing. That's actually sadly all the information we're even told about this thing. What a joke. This enticing Hansel and Gretel looking house, lovingly called the Lovett Barnard House, which was, I'll add, demolished in 1963 to make way for a baseball field despite vigorous protests by local residents. This report was written before the demolition. The finest example of the 10 or more river stone houses in the Gothic Revival style, 1851, probably designed by George Lovett, who was an engineer, who also was purported to have constructed the village's third bridge, spanning Grand River in 1858, and also built this house. Altered by the school board to adapt for use as a kindergarten in 1923, I knew it was here, built to lure children into its loins. It had the look, What a shame. What the frick is that? Get up there, Jerry. Balance this urn atop of this column so that we can remember something later. Remember what you've lost. That's what it is. Civil War monument in the cleverly named Monument Park in Adrian, Michigan. I guess I could have gone without saying Michigan. You already know because it's the American Building Survey of Michigan. And as exactly what it looks like, this column is the only surviving fragment of the Bank of Pennsylvania, which was once in Philadelphia. Wait a second. Okay. So earlier in the survey, we have a guy who takes 4 columns from the Bank of Pennsylvania to use as his front porch, but he whittles them down in diameter. And now we have the last, I guess, 5, the 5th of the 6th. But how can it be this only surviving fragment if there's 4 columns up the street? That'd be 5 surviving fragments, friggin' liars. Anyway, this was once in Philadelphia. And the bank was designed by Benjamin Latrobe in 1798. And although the monument was erected on July 4th, it originally was a column on the Bank of Pennsylvania. The bank, they demolished it in 1868, and they shipped the column alone to Adrian in 1869. Benjamin Latrobe, who didn't build this, but apparently built the column, was an immigrant in 1796, one of the finest architects to practice in America. I wonder if he's related to the old Rolling Rock beer, which clearly states on the side of the can, straight from the glass-lined tanks of old Latrobe, which to me sounds suspiciously like a urinal, which does fall in line with the taste of Rolling Rock. But I digress, because the Bank of Pennsylvania, one of Latrobe's first commissions, was the progenitor of the Greek Revival. No wonder he destroyed it. And then it goes on to describe the Bank of Pennsylvania, which is stupid because we're not talking about that. We're talking about this Civil War monument, which consists of a single ionic column, as you can tell, carrying a stone urn and supported on an octagonal base. There it is, 3 stages high. It's unfluted, made of 9 high, 8 and low drums which alternate. Okay, so it's just segments, I guess. The capital, which is supposed to resemble the temple on the Ilissus in Athens, and it's the base is made of sandstone, and supposedly it's erected by citizens of Adrian in memory of our fallen soldiers. By such as these was our Union saved in the great struggle of 61 to 65 is what it says on it. Kind of a weird monument. You just take it from a bank and then put an urn on it and say, oh, this represents the soldiers. I don't know. Seems silly. But whatever. Put it in the middle of Monument Park. And they did. And they also mounted 4 small cannons in simple stone facing the cardinal points, which might date from the time of the principal monument. There it is. There it is again. There's the cannons. There it is with the trees gathering around to stroke its shaft. Got phrasing on that one. I apologize. Fix it in post, Jimmy. Styrofoam-headed mother bleeper. This here is the Anderson House, erected in 18 1932, despite having no builder of any architect or builder, it is built of wood. And despite it being what appears to be an old church with a four-pronged tower here in the center, it's not. It was built by Elijah Anderson, one of twin brothers who built houses of the same type on opposite sides of the Chicago Road in Tecumseh. It was built and occupied by Elijah Anderson for 20 or 25 years, something like that, when it was sold to Mr. Horace Brewer, who had been associated with the Andersons in business. It's been used for several years as an inn, which in this case is short for interesting, just off the beaten path from inconceivable and cousins to improbable. Now, that last one was a stretch. You get what I'm saying, every day, all the jokes can't be good. Although, in my case, usually none of them are good. But you mind your tone. You save your detracting comments for the comment section, where I can dutifully delete them. No, I'm just kidding. I actually don't really care. I only delete comments when they don't make sense. Usually by some bot that says something like, yeah, you don't know anything about Africa. And it's like, okay, yeah, this video's about Michigan, so thanks, bot. I'm not sure how you knew that I didn't know anything about Africa, unless you've been sneaking in my house reading my diary, and drawing conclusions from the lack of African content in said diary. But I don't think bots can even do that. Break into my house undetected. Not without getting shot in the bot face. John D. Appleton is how I choose to complete this awful and awkward segue, was the builder of this house who came to Brighton in 1839, who earned his living as a carpenter and a joiner. He built this house, which is close by the church, and later became a large public house, aka drinkery, opposite the Brighton Hotel. This was known locally and colloquially as the Appleton Block. The Kelly family, into whose house the home came into the mid-1880s, who were substantial citizens of Brighton, they arrived from Dixboro, Michigan. They built a water-powered sawmill, and he was an early merchant, and he owned a farm, and then this was apparently a store for some time. Public house, store, residence. This house does it all! And believe it or not, this is a side view of that house, which is kind of funny because this looks so grand from the front, and then from the side it's like, meh. Obviously, some of this stuff was added on later, including this garage, which looks like it's at least big enough for one go-kart. And then the original doors. This is a funny mailbox. I wonder if the inside of this, it just has no rear panel, and so the letters just fall inside the door. Because if so, that's brilliant. And if not, it's still brilliant, but it's my brilliant idea. And if you claim that I stole it from the Appletons, well, I'll deny it up and down. Now I'll rush back and I'll delete this video. Alonzo Old's house. That's not a descriptor. That's the title. Built between 1848 and 1849, which I'm pretty sure that just means built in 1848 by no architect. There's 2 stories and a basement somehow. The basement walls are of field stone, and we're told it's a temple type. Yeah, I'd say it's just a temple, but what do I know? Definitely a temple type. Look at that little basement window. What's going on here?
Let me guess, you dragged these columns by oxen team up from Flint in the harshest winter. They originally belonged to a restaurant there called Shoney's, but Mr. Shoney himself died and left no will.
I guess I could have made up a better story than that, but I didn't. This is Fort Mackinac, North Blockhouse in Mackinac Island. I used to know someone long ago who worked summers during the boat races out at Mackinac Island, and I wonder if that person was aware of this fort. If you're out there, you don't know who you are, but you should. The builders were American artisans and soldiers who were attached to the fort. Limestone for the basement and first-story wall with squared timbers and wood roof. There are no original wood drawings. And honestly, for this to be the only photograph of a fort is absolutely ridiculous. So we're gonna veer from the survey for just a second to see what's going on here. But we'll tell you first that the North Blockhouse, which was built by the Americans after their occupation of the fort in 1796, we know it to have been completed by December 1800 from a war report where he mentions 3 strong blockhouses. The structure contains 2 stone fireplaces. It was planned for the use of non-combatants during a siege, as all forts are for non-combatants. Originally, there was an entrance to the basement story, but this is now closed up. Around 1880, the upper story was used to house a water reservoir. The old pipes are still in evidence, but the load of the tank was so great that it all but demolished the stone walls. They were repaired by the National Park Service during 1934, but the whole building is still in a serious condition. The old wood beams which supported the roof and tied the structure together at the eaves were removed and have now disappeared. Ooh, magic! I know that these surveys are so filtered down to a ridiculous extent, but that's taking it to a whole new level, that one photograph, so I'm gonna break form here and take a closer look at this to see what exactly is going on. And if I am not mistaken, looks like it was once a Stafford. Can't be certain. Let's just take a look and see why they aren't giving us more than one crappy picture of a sidewall. Like, what's actually remaining? Wow, look at all these combatants. Well, I guess a lot of this looks like it was remade, but not all of it. I guess over here is the picture that they took for us, and now they've added a cannon to really sell us on the idea. I don't know, these low walls. These could be the top of walls that were more submerged, and that looks kind of to be the case. So they spray paint this whole thing white, this old Starfort white. What a weird thing. Okay, whatever, you do you. I'll leave it alone. Moving on. Maybe it's featured later more prominently in the survey, like this Grand Hotel, which is on Mackinac Island, which was probably occupied by my former friend while they worked there for the Great Boat Race. Built in 1887 by architect named Mason and Rice, built on a resort island where there are no cars allowed, if I remember. The entire island project was conducted by John Oliver Plank, resort operator, and that is literally the extent of the information that we are given. Now, this looks beautiful. It looks like the resorts that you see on like Coronado Island and other places like that out in the west coast. And a horse-powered golf cart? Okay, I guess in a place with no cars, I guess that's the story of the day. But just look at the grandeur of this. We don't even get to look at the picture inside. Sometimes these surveys are so filtered, it's almost insulting. But I'll let sleeping dogs lie for now. We'll be back, though. Historic district, I'm sure you got Mackinac Island built so long ago. I mean, what, like 200 years ago? 150 years ago? That's pretty impressive. Now, I don't know what I'm looking at here, but I was expecting you guys to tell me, but I guess since you don't want to, I guess I have no choice but to tell you. And no, this isn't a monument. It's the Cliff Shaft Mine head frame, silly. Out there in Marquette County, built in 1919 off the U.S. Route 41. Because of its prominent location, the Cleveland Cliffs Iron Company believed it to be important that its new shaft house be architecturally pleasing as well as functional. As a result, in 1919, the firm built this reinforced concrete shaft house in a Neo-Egyptian revival. Of course, I remember the Neo-Egyptian revival, when everyone was wearing pharaoh headdresses and walking around with staffs that had cobras on the top. One of two identical structures built on the mine site. This mine shaft's house base is 37 feet by 55 feet, and honestly, I don't even buy this story. What the frick is this? A mine shaft house? Needs to be aesthetically pleasing? Get the frick out of here, though. Michigan, I'm tired of your BS for one day. And no, not the people that live there.
The authorities, that's what I speak of. Get out of here, then. I'll see you soon.